session of STEM for Her virtual programs. My name is Margot Gora-Stockman. I am a board member of STEM for Her, and I have with me 4 amazing young women who are going to talk about some of their experiences and passions with STEM for Her, and we're really looking forward to this program. STEM for Her is a nonprofit that is dedicated to fostering interest, education, and passion for young girls and young women who are interested in STEM for Her. And so we couldn't be more excited to be kicking this off. This summer is the first time we have launched these virtual programs. And this came about because we figured out that during COVID, we were going to have to find another way to execute our programs that was less physical in nature and more virtual. And as we came up with these ideas to have these virtual sessions, we realized there was a side benefit of it, that we could reach an even broader audience than just girls and young women in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, and Southern Maryland area, which is where we've typically been focused. So we're very excited that we can get to more than that and do more than that before going forward. Now, this session today is the first of 3 sessions that really trace the journey of girls and young women as they get into STEM, from taking the first steps to getting your toe in the water or your foot or jumping into the water in terms of areas of STEM you're interested in, to working through college and choosing a college and choosing what you study during STEM, to the last path of the journey, last part of the journey is looking at succeeding in the real world. And we'll hear from lots of different panelists with experiences and all of the above. And so we think this will be very, very exciting and interesting. We will have a series of questions that we will ask the panelists. And we'll also have a series of quick polls that we'll ask the audience to quickly mark, the poll of an answer that'll show up. And then after we finish the Q&A with the panelists, we're going to open it up to the audience for additional questions that they would like to ask the panelists. So if you have a question, it's important, on the bottom of your screen, there should be a button that says Q&A. Q&A, please type your question into that Q&A at the bottom of your screen, not into a separate chat window, but specifically the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. And we will, we have our wonderful new executive director, Julie Meyer, who's with us also, and she will be looking at the questions and kind of summarizing and choosing a few to ask everybody. So with that said, we can go ahead and get started with our first polling question. And Jennifer, who's with us, is going to help us with that. We could pull up the first polling question. There you go. All right. So we're going to give, we've already got some quick answers. Wow, look at that. And you can choose more than one answer. This is important. It's that doesn't say you have to pick only one. If you have only one, pick only one. If you have more, all right. So we have, we can see people voting real time. A lot of science, a lot of technology. We still got some folks. It says 19 to 24. We actually have 34 people registered for this session. So we'll go ahead and vote. All right, almost 19 to 24. Okay, so we've got 6 holdouts, it looks like. We'll give it 3 more minutes, 3 more seconds, excuse me. We'll go ahead and vote. Okay, so it looks like the science is the primary. I'm not going to say the winner. I think there's no winner, but the science is the primary winner. So it is interesting to see there's so many kinds of science that girls and women and we could pursue. It's very interesting to see this. So, okay, excellent. All right, well now we're going to move on to the first question. So, often when girls and young women are looking at getting into STEM or are into STEM, they come across areas or issues where they may be the only girl in the room, and it can feel a little bit intimidating. And we wanted to start the first question to the panelists of, have you ever been in a situation where you feel like you are the only girl in the room, or you've seen that, and how have you responded to it or overcome it, if it's made you at all feel uncomfortable, and what thoughts would you have for anybody else who's in a similar situation? And we'll start with Meryl, and then we'll rotate who we start with. Oh, I didn't introduce our wonderful No, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't introduce our wonderful panelists, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves before we get to the first question. So we have Meryl Keating, Anika Nikar, Kirti Kumar, and Jasmine Syed, and each of them has fascinating background stories. So I apologize. I jumped to the question without letting you all talk about yourselves. So the first question is, could you each introduce yourselves in a minute or two and talk about what you're doing in STEM for her and what makes you passionate about this area? So we will start with Meryl. So go ahead, Meryl.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Meryl Keating. I am 15 years old and a sophomore in high school in the Seattle area. Next year, I'll be a freshman in college studying mechanical engineering and artificial intelligence. A few fun facts about me are that I'm a black belt in mixed martial arts. I have published 3 books, and I love STEM. And I love STEM for Her's mission, and I love advocating for women and girls in STEM, so I'm very excited to be here.
Great, thank you. All right, how about Jasmine?
Sure. Hi, my name is Jasmine. I graduated from Duke University a year ago, and I majored in computer science and sociology, and I minored in global health. Since that year, I've been working at Oracle, and so I'm a solutions engineer, which means that I help different companies move their databases and apps and infrastructure to the cloud. And I graduated from high school at the Baldwin School, which is in the Philadelphia suburb area. And I would say one of my favorite STEM projects I've gotten to work on was when I was at Duke. I worked in a global health and biomedical engineering lab, and I helped with the coding portion for the Pocket Colposcope, which is a less invasive, lower cost solution, lower cost cervical cancer screening device that would allow women, especially in more remote areas, to undergo a checkup by themselves in the comfort of their own home.
Fantastic. All right. Anika?
Hi, my name's Anika Nikar, and I'm a rising junior at Winston Churchill High School in Potomac, Maryland. I really love STEM, and I have a particular passion for math and science. I intend to pursue medicine in the future. I especially enjoy challenging myself through course rigor, especially with math, and I try to involve myself in various STEM clubs and activities throughout my school, in addition to tutoring in the subject.
Wonderful. All right, and Kirti.
Hi everyone, I'm Kirti, and I just graduated from Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Northern Virginia. This fall, I will be going to UC Berkeley, and I'll be doing a dual degree in electrical engineering and computer science plus business. In high school, I started SheSoft, which is my nonprofit with a mission to bridge the gender gap in engineering. And we also work a lot with STEM for Her. And I was also involved in various school clubs and activities, which I can talk more about later.
Fantastic. All right. What an impressive group of young women here. That's love it. All right. So now let's get back to the question that I had started with a little too quickly before. So thinking about in any of your backgrounds or situations, have you ever been in a situation where you're the only girl in the room, which we find often as we are girls and young women in STEM? And what did that make you feel like? How did you work through it, if that's what it took? And what advice would you have for some others who may be in a situation where they suddenly realize, hey, I'm the only one here? And then how about we start with Kirti? We'll go in backwards order. Kirti.
Yeah, so in middle school, I had the experience of being one of the very few girls when I attended an international math camp. There were about 20 girls of like 200 people, which is pretty jarring when you consider that they came from all over the world. And for me, this was the first time I really noticed the gender gap. But the nice part was I wasn't the only girl. So, us girls were really able to stick together. So I guess my first piece of advice would be that it's really important that if there are other girls, make sure to uplift each other. And then sort of more later on at the start of high school, I wanted to join my school robotics team. And I walked into the tryouts and I was the only girl. And this was extremely discouraging for me because there weren't other people who I was sort of able to relate with immediately. And so I think there are kind of two parts to what I learned from this experience. So first, I think it's really important to find a mentor or a role model who will be there and like tell you not to give up when you're discouraged, because it's understandably a difficult experience. So find someone who you're comfortable sharing things with and will motivate you. For me, this was my mom, but really you can find anyone. Second, I think you should just immerse yourself into the environment and sort of dispel any myth that you can't do it or you shouldn't be there, or and just sort of internalize the sense of I'm here for a reason and I really do fit in. And eventually there won't be any questions or any doubts. And I guess another way to say this is fake it till you make it. And this was advice that I received really early on and definitely helped me out.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Keeping with the reverse order, how about Annika?
Hi. So yes, I have experienced this. It started when I was pretty young, and I was hesitant in participating in STEM activities because mainly I was afraid that I'd be alone. So oftentimes my mom would sign me up for summer camps that would generally revolve around STEM. And I always found the content of the course like really interesting, but I was hesitant in attending like the camps because the majority of the other kids in the room were boys. And I tended to feel separated from the crowd. So, being alone in a setting can be pretty disheartening. But I researched this, and did you know that the number of women who've received STEM degrees each year has increased by 50,000 in the past decade? I think that statistic is really fascinating, and I hope it illustrates how you're not alone. STEM prevalence among women is growing really fast, and you shouldn't feel scared to participate in the change.
Great. Thank you. All right, Jasmine?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I graduated from college a year ago, and since then I've been working in a male-dominated tech company. And one of the first things I noticed was that there was originally 2 girls on my team, but I soon became the only girl out of 12 people on the team with a male manager. And I felt like I was getting excluded from a lot of things. I wasn't invited to team lunches. I felt like I wasn't getting the same opportunities, and I talked to the other girl who had switched teams, and she mentioned that even though she had a master's degree in computer science and some of the other people on the team only had a bachelor's degree, she was often relegated to a lot of the administration roles. So she had the job of planning team meetings or planning team lunches, and she didn't feel like that was what she was there for. And one of the things I realized was that even if nobody's pushing for you, you have to push and you have to fight for the opportunities that you think you deserve. And one of the things I ended up doing was helping to found a women's group at my office with some of the other women on the other teams who had coincidentally been feeling the same way. And we've been meeting, been able to bond about some of the things we felt in the workforce, but also learning technical skills from each other, talking about how to find mentors, find new opportunities. But I think that if people are discouraging you, you really have to, you can't let yourself get too down. You really have to fight. And if you believe you deserve an opportunity, then sometimes you're going to be the only person fighting for yourself, and you have to be okay with that.
Very good advice. All right, and Meryl.
Yeah, since my parents are both in the STEM field, I grew up having a passion for coding and engineering. So when I was younger, my parents would sign me up for summer coding and STEAM camps. And so most of the time, I would walk in, there'd be hundreds of kids, and there would be very few girls, or I would be one of the only ones. But it never really bothered me because at the time, most of my friends were guys. I tended to get along with them better, and they never really treated me any differently. They just saw me as another good programmer, and so they were like, okay, let's just code this robot. So it never really bothered me too much. But then when I did look around the room and I saw there weren't that many girls, I think what motivated me throughout the years was making sure that my mindset wasn't I'm the only girl in the room, but I'm the first girl. and now it was time for me to bring other girls with me. And I knew that I had a passion for coding and engineering, and I didn't want to let the ratio of boys versus girls discourage me.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And I will share, I'm over 20 years out from graduating from undergraduate, but I will say that even in the professional world, and I work in management consulting, which involves consulting, technology, finance, et cetera, as you get to more senior levels, you are still sometimes the only girl or only woman in the room. And everything that we've just heard from the 4 panelists, I think is absolutely true. You know, believe in yourself, really think that you deserve to be there. You know, if you're there, you deserve to be there. And, you know your material, you can articulate competently and talk to your coworkers or your clients. And it's something where, then you just become very comfortable in your own shoes, in your own seat. I'm fortunate to work with a lot of male colleagues who have been very supportive as well. And, over time, I've had very few experiences that do, in the professional world that do make me feel left out, if you will. But I have many friends who I've talked to who do have more of that experience. But I think it's just being very strong, confident in what you can do, knowing your facts, knowing your things, and then people around you will respect you. So it doesn't necessarily go away, but it's just continuing to be confident in your own abilities and getting allies and people around you. It really makes a difference. All right, so I already see lots of Q&A and chat questions starting, so we'll make sure we leave time at the end for all these questions. So I'm so happy. All right, one more question, and then we'll move on to poll number 2. So the second question relates to, we often hear that there just aren't enough role models for women in STEM, for girls and women in STEM who want to pursue STEM. So a couple of questions for the panelists. One, who have been 1 or 2 of your particular role models as you go through your journey? And then the second question is, are there other role models that are well known in the public and the media that you also would look up to that you think are good role models for STEM? So personal, and then from a broader perspective. So let's see. So we'll start with Kirti this time. You might have to come off of mute, Kirti.
Yeah. So for me, my mom, I mentioned this earlier, but my mom has especially encouraged me. And I guess some other people who I've been able to meet a lot of people through STEM for Her, such as like a lot of the board members who are so inspiring and encouraging, as well as a lot of the SheSoft board members. And those women advise me all the time and really help me push myself. And then someone else I also look up to in STEM is Sally Ride, because I love space, and her accomplishments as a pioneer, as the first woman, American woman in space, is just incredible. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic. All right, Annika.
Hi. So, like Kirti, my mom inspires me a lot. She just motivates me to be like the best I can be. She herself is a doctor, and she just pushes me to achieve greater. But I like to search history. So one woman I admire in the STEM fields right now is Emily du Châtelet. She was the first woman to have a scientific paper published by the Paris Academy, despite living in a time that didn't really foster academic growth for women, especially, in the early 1700s in France. A woman making any sort of discovery was pretty unheard of, and she challenged that obstacle and became the first. So she inspires me and pushes me to pursue what I'm passionate about, and she's just a great role model.
Fantastic. All right. And how about Jasmine?
Yeah, so I've been really lucky during my life. I feel like I've had very supportive parents, teachers, and professors who've been great role models. But if I look to history, a few people who inspire me are first Ada Lovelace. She's often considered the first computer programmer, and she was a mathematician who wrote an algorithm for the first computer. If you look at World War II, women were actually the ones breaking code, and they were working as computer scientists. And present day, I look up to this woman named Deborah Sterling. She got an engineering degree from Stanford, and since then has actually founded a company that creates educational toys that has that try to get girls interested in STEM. And I think that's great that not only has she gone through STEM and gotten an engineering degree, but now she's trying to bring it back to the community and get more kids interested.
That's fantastic. Would like to see some of those toys. I'll have to look it up.
They look so
All
fun to play with.
Oh, I'll bet. I'll bet. All right. And finally, Meryl.
Yeah, so my role model is also my mom. She's had success in so many different fields like science and technology and law and a lot more. And she grew up getting straight A's, and she skipped multiple grades and went to Harvard, but a lot of the time she didn't get the recognition that she deserved. And so when she had me, she always made sure that I knew how to fight for myself, and she fought for me and made sure that I pushed for the opportunities that I wanted, because someday she knows that I'm going to have to fight for someone else too. So my mom is probably my biggest role model, but someone in STEM, a woman in STEM who does inspire me, even though she has passed on, is Katherine Johnson. A little bit of her story was shared in the movie Hidden Figures. I really recommend you watch it if you don't know too much about her. But I would say that she's probably also a really big role model for me as well.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I watched Hidden Figures once, and I feel like I could watch it 2 or 3 more times. It's just really fantastic and inspiring. All right. Great experiences. Okay. I think we are ready for our panel, our polling question number 2. So if we're ready, as soon as it comes up, it should pop up momentarily. All right. So now we're interested from the audience's perspective of, what do you think are some of the top barriers for not having more girls and young women in STEM? And in this case, choose your top 3. So this is also, you can pick more than one. Oh boy, look at that. Well, we only have one. Okay. I know the other, it's a lot to read. So that's, please go ahead and read it, go through it. And we can see, to some extent, I know that you may be thinking that a lot of these are, in fact, true. And it's maybe even hard to pick 3, but it is, that's what we're looking at. All right, we'll give a little bit more time for this one because there's a lot to read. So we've got about showing 56% of folks have voted. So let's see. No, 64%, 16. All right. Go ahead and looks like we have a few more. I'll just give it about 10 more seconds and then we'll, 17. All right. Yeah, there's a lot to read. Okay, we'll give this polling just a little bit more. So this is interesting. So far it's popping up. There's 18. Our top one is lack of encouragement and or mentorship to pursue a career in STEM. That's really interesting. So there's some people that just have not been encouraged. One of our former board members actually grew up in India, I believe, and she said girls were actively discouraged in her family by her father from pursuing any kind of education, much less STEM. And then she studied on her own separately and got her education, later did in STEM, came over here and is now having it very differently with her family and her daughters. So that's very interesting to see that that's coming up now. And then we have also perception of STEM as I've seen isolating or unfriendly towards women. And the third one, too hard or difficult subject. Okay, this is really interesting. I appreciate the audience sharing your perspectives here. This is great for us to have as we go forward. So thank you. All right. So let's move to polling question number 3. Not polling question number 3. Question number 3. We'll get to polling question number 3 in a minute. So what are some of the most meaningful activities that you all have done to further your interests in STEM for her, whether they're classes, whether they're activities outside classes, you know, whether they're formal, structured, or unstructured on your own time. You know, where did your encouragement come from? Or it might just be your own interests, but what are some of those things that have really been an additive to you in your career? So let's see, we'll start with Jasmine this time.
Sure. So I have, in high school, I was part of math club and the science club. And, you know, if you don't have your own club, if you don't have those clubs at your school, it's great to also work with the teachers and maybe try to create your own club. There are a lot of resources online, especially with coding. They have like code.org and Girls Who Code. And I also, you know, in high school, wasn't sure if I was interested in biology in particular. So I asked teachers if they could help me find research opportunities. And then college is really great because when you're at college, it's so easy to actually be able to approach professors that you've had and think they've been doing interesting work, or you know, you can look online and email a professor and ask directly, can I work in your lab? Can I try to do research? And they have research for engineering, they have research for computer science, they have research for science, they have math research. And for me, that was one of the formative experiences for me in college, getting to work on a device that could impact real women. And the device, the cervical cancer device, screening device that I helped with some coding and some prototyping with, is actually being implemented in Panama, and they brought it to India. So it's really cool to not only be able to work on your own projects, but to work on projects with other people that can have a real impact. And you get to meet a ton of people in the lab that can also serve as great mentors.
Great. All right. How about Kirti?
Yeah, so I was team captain and vice president of the ball robotics team at my school. And that was really great because I was able to learn a lot about robotics, but also about teamwork and leadership. And I was also a team lead for the school's CubeSat team. So for those of you who don't know what CubeSat is, it's basically a small satellite. And we have a grant from NASA to build and launch a satellite. And as a team lead of ADCS, which is Attitude Determination and Control Systems, I worked primarily on the orbital simulation and orbit propagation, which is basically a bunch of applied math and physics to computer science. And we were supposed to launch this year on a SpaceX Falcon 9, but unfortunately, our project got delayed because of COVID. But outside of school, I've also done research in applying machine learning to novel drone technology to aerially inspect train tracks, which is done manually. Normally it's done manually, but through my drone, it's able to be done aerially. And I also worked on a project on infectious disease modeling for the opioid crisis, which was the biggest crisis before COVID. So I'm going to continue that research this summer as well. Also, people say that teaching is the best way to learn, and I've been able to learn a lot through mentoring girls through my nonprofit, SheSaw.
Okay, fantastic. All right, Meryl, and then Anika.
Yeah, I also furthered my interest in STEM through robotics. So I joined my freshman year, and I thought that I would be on the programming sub-team because that is what I already knew about. But then I walked into the mechanics room, and I just felt this energy that was really respectful and hardworking, but also really fun. And so I just joined the sub-team, even though I didn't really know much about it. And the past 2 years of being able to build robots with my teammates and being able to actually learn more about working as a team, it really changed my career interest to mechanical engineering and artificial intelligence. And so I always knew that it was something that I wanted to do from a very young age, when I was like building little robots and going to camps to build robots. But I didn't know how much it would affect my life in that way.
All right, fantastic. I'm so impressed. All right, lastly, Anika, And then we'll go to our next polling question.
Some of the meaningful things that I've done to further my interests in STEM are involving myself in various STEM clubs and activities. And I think these are especially good because they focus on specific areas of STEM and they can really allow you to develop a passion or interest in a certain topic. So, you know, delving into a deeper part of STEM can reveal a whole new world of knowledge. Yeah, I have a passion for math, so I involve myself in math through, you know, honor societies and various clubs. But yeah, they really help get involved.
All right, fantastic. Thank you all. Okay, let's move to polling question number 3. I think it should come up momentarily. How are you currently involved in STEM activities? And this is, again, you can vote for as many as you want. There's no like one only. This is less effort to read than the last question, I promise. Oh boy, it looks like a lot of people are doing multiple activities. Right, so that's very interesting. We have a lot of folks that are doing it on their own time, which I think is especially great. One thing that I have realized is that depending on where you are in different parts of the country or even in the world, there may only be so many school classes or school clubs to do this. One of my closest friends from business school had gone to the same high school, the Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology that Kirti currently goes to, but now she lives in a very small town in Michigan. And she said to me, she said, I can't believe compared to what I had access to when I was in high school. She said, my daughters don't even have access to coding classes. And she said, I had to lobby the local county board and government or to just say, we need to teach more of this to our students in school and why are we not? So she successfully got that put into the schools in rural Michigan. But it's, I think I can't stress that, if it's not there, being able to do it on your own time, there are a number of resources to help you get involved in that. Maybe I could ask the panelists, I have the Khan Academy, I think code.org. Just go quickly through, any of you could just speak up, anything that you've seen that individually has been good for you.
Yeah, so I know personally, I spent a lot of time, especially when I was first learning about coding on code.org. Girls Who Code has a bunch of resources for if you are trying to learn by yourself, but also if you want to start your own coding club at school. Even if you don't know anything, it could be a really great opportunity to learn with other people. And I'm sure if you're interested in science, they have really cool experiments on YouTube that you can just search up. So.
Great. All right. We are just a little over halfway in. There's another question I could ask, or I can't see all the questions, but Julie, I know you can. It looks like we've got 9 questions already in the Q&A and about 20 chat comments. Julie, is there anything that you are seeing that we can just pick from there and ask the panelists, since it looks like there's a number going on, or should I continue to proceed with what I have?
Can you hear me, Margot?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I put some stuff in chat. One question that came up more than once was about imposter syndrome. If any of you have experienced that, and how did you deal with it?
Okay, so imposter syndrome, I'm taking that to mean, feeling like you don't belong, like feeling like, you might have made it to this class or made it to this club, but that maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you don't belong there.
Right.
So, all right, I'll turn it over. Kirti, I see you smiling. So I take it you probably have a point of view on this. Would you like to go first and comment on that?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess I mentioned this earlier, but I think like the advice that I received when I think I asked this question on a panel a lot of years back, and my question was, how do you deal with it? And everyone answered, fake it till you make it. So if you think that you don't belong. Just act like you belong, and then eventually you will feel like you belong. It sounds kind of weird when you're like saying it out loud, but I think for me it's actually like worked pretty well. So yeah, just fake it till you make it.
Yeah, I would say I've seen that or done that in the professional world too. If you feel like you don't belong, act as though you do belong, and then eventually you'll start feeling like you belong. It's interesting how that kind of happens. All right. Anybody else? Jasmine, Meryl, Anika?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely felt it, you know, college. Computer science at my school started about 50-50, guys and girls. And then by the time you graduate, it's like less than 30% women. Definitely fake it till you make it. And, you know yourself. Don't doubt yourself. If other people are doubting you, I don't know, let haters be your motivators. But you really know what you're capable of. So you gotta fight for your opportunities.
Yeah, great. Right. Anybody else want to comment or move to the next question?
I love that advice, fake it till you make it. And yeah, everyone is capable. You can't be afraid of joining something. I think you should just jump into it.
All right. Okay. All right, Julie, how about another one?
Sure. Well, I'll give you a two-part. There was a question about, has anyone ever assumed that you were in the room just because you were a woman? I guess a kind of affirmative action question, that you didn't really have the same credentials or the same skill, but someone assumed you got there because you were the token woman, I guess. And then there were questions about, has anyone on the other side tried to discourage you from pursuing STEM fields?
So that's interesting. So have you ever felt like you were in the room to be like the token girl or token woman? And then second, has anybody ever discouraged you? I think you've all sort of answered some of this in different ways, but maybe we could answer it more directly. Anything come to mind? I can tell you're all thinking. Okay, Jasmine, you look like you might be about to say something.
About the second one, I did actually have a manager who I felt like was not kind of on my side. And I was really lucky because in college I had both female and male professors that I felt like, went the extra distance to make the women in the room feel like they belonged and to really encourage them to continue even when things were hard. But it's all about finding the community of other women around you and kind of speaking up when you think that maybe things aren't fair.
All right, that's good. So I'll actually parlay this into another question that I was going to ask. It's almost the inverse of the question that was just asked. For everybody, what do you think that teachers, parents, and other adults could do with girls who are interested in STEM to become more interested in STEM? Like, what are the types of encouragement from your parents or teachers or others? Like, what are the types of things that really made you feel included, that made you want to pursue STEM more? What are some of those things? Let's see, how about we'll start with Meryl.
So I think something that's really important for, I think particularly teachers and in the school system, is making sure that they have those classes available when I know a lot of people have those problems where they don't feel like they have enough choices. And also making sure that teachers are encouraging girls and the students in general, because I know a lot of the times when I was talking with my friends and I was like, hey, why don't you join the robotics team, or why don't you do this class with me? And they're like, oh, I'm not smart enough for that, or I'm not able to do that. And so that's also part of that kind of imposter syndrome that they've kind of been dealing with. And I think if teachers and parents were more, some teachers and parents were more encouraging and pushing them to go for what they want, I think that'd be like that'd be a lot better.
Yeah, it's a great example of, you may have a friend who you say, "Want to take this class?" and they say, "Well, I'm not smart enough to do that." And then you could help. It could be a peer-to-peer friend, and even if it's parents or teachers saying, "Well, just give it a shot. Just see what you think." So, all right. Anybody else? Kirti, Anika, Jasmine?
I can comment on this and also a little bit about the previous question. So one of the previous questions was, has there any time been like someone who has discouraged you? And I would say that sometimes I feel like I'm the one who discourages me. So I can feel like sometimes I feel like I'm the one who doubts myself, and those questions of doubt sort of arise within myself. And maybe it's not anyone else. It's just the way that I'm perceiving things. And so for that, I would say that you should be your best advocate and not your like internal enemy, not your internal critic, but you yourself should be your best advocate. And then I would say, and then yeah, and then I would say to the question that we're on right now, in terms of how teachers and parents can best like encourage their kids or anything like that. In terms of teachers, I would say just try to include everyone. And even as a student, I think this is really important. Maybe you can tell that like your friend who sits next to you hasn't been as like involved in the class as you are. Just like reach out and like become their friend, like be the one to like initiate the friendship. And just like trying to make that connection and trying to make everyone feel included is, I think, a really important part of building like a learning community.
That's great feedback. Anyone else? Anika, you look like you're.
To add, I think, or at least I hope, that this problem will sort of decrease over time, because I know it's definitely helpful when I see another girl in the room. I feel like I have someone I can, relate to. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that encourages me.
Yeah. So I actually, so kind of related to the other question, I joined my company, and another new hire was also placed on the same team who was male. And my manager went up to both of us and said to him, "I can't believe you're letting a girl," well, we had played tennis together. So he said, "I can't believe you're letting a girl beat you at tennis and now beat you at getting your work certifications before you." And I couldn't believe that someone had so brazenly said that. So I think for, what anybody who's working at a company, for teachers at schools, everybody kind of needs to assess what they think of other people. When you see other people, you have to realize sometimes you are biased against them. Everybody has a few biases that they may hold on to, and it's kind of unlearning. You have to unlearn that. Nobody is less capable than you because they're different than you. And teachers need to make classrooms more welcoming. They need to, maybe sometimes content is more interesting to people. Maybe like they can, like I remember some classes like CS was less interesting if it was based on programming a game I had never heard of. That kind of thing doesn't feel as welcoming. So I think especially if you're a teacher and you want to make sure that everyone in your classroom feels welcomed and feels interested, you need to kind of assess your own biases, and then kind of ask your students, what kind of things are you interested? Because the way you learn them can honestly affect how interested you are in it. And you don't want something like one bad experience to turn you off forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share one last personal story, kind of tying some of this together. I graduated from my undergrad at the University of Virginia, and then after working in the business world for a little while and doing things, I applied to graduate business school, and I ended up getting into MIT for business school. And I thought, wow, I got an MIT, but I wasn't an engineer major undergrad. I wasn't like, I pictured that anybody who would go to MIT for any reason must be a super rocket scientist that has like fantastic scores and everything. And I thought, well, you know, how am I going to be able to be successful there? And I thought, okay, well, I've been successful so far in the professional environment. I know that I work very hard. I'll do whatever it takes, whatever I need to do. So I went to visit. I went to some sessions I had. I found a woman who had gone to my same undergrad who was also getting an MBA from MIT. And I talked to her, and it inspired me a lot that she said, no, you can do it. Here's what I did. So it really was meaningful to me to find other people that were like peers that could do it. I said, well, if she can do it, if she got through it, I think I can. And if I spend too long trying to talk myself out of it for any reason, I will talk myself out of it. So I'm just going to plow in and go. And I had to study extra hard the first semester or two and work with my peers and get it. But you know, I did fine. And I liked the way that they were teaching some of these topics because they were teaching math and science and otherwise in a way that was applied to solving business problems. And I thought that was, for me, that was really motivating way to learn about math and science and business. So it's just, you know, the themes of don't limit yourself by your own thinking. I mean, I almost did that. But just plow through if you think you can do it and find your mentors and your peers and your friends. Okay.
Oops.
So anything else that's coming up from the audience?
Margot?
Julie, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? There's a question I think is interesting about how each of you chose the specific STEM field that interests you most. How did you narrow it down?
All right. You want me to call on you, or do you all just want to speak up? So, Jasmine, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, exposure, you know, you gotta kind of know, you gotta try things before you even know if you're gonna like it. And the first time I went to anything coding related, it was like a camp that my parents put me in, and there were 4 girls and over 100 guys, and all the counselors were guys, and I did not like it. And then in high school, I was lucky enough to go to an all-girls school, and my mom said, you know, you're gonna be in a room full of women. It could be fun to try again. There might be more people that you can connect with, you know, maybe you'll like the material better. So I did, and that's when I realized I did like it. But you gotta put yourself out there. You gotta try it, because otherwise you will literally never know.
I completely agree with that. And I definitely did the same thing when I was younger. I just tried like a bunch of things out. I like joined a bunch of different camps and tried a bunch of different clubs. And I guess like at least what I find for me is like the hardest part of a task is like getting started. And so I would say like just get started. If I were to give you guys any advice on what to do going forward, is to like just get started on the thing that you've been like sort of like holding back on. Like just join the club, or like just watch the YouTube video. Like just, even if you just watch like the first minute of it, or just like think you're going to try like the first day of the camp and see how it is. Or like just join the class, and if you don't like it, you can always like change your mind about it, but definitely like give everything like a try. So yeah.
All right. Meryl, Anika, anything from your perspective?
I totally agree. Yeah, my parents as well, they signed me up for various different activities. Like when I was younger, I went to like physics camps, and then later on I tried taking biology courses, and I found really what I was best at and what I enjoyed the most. So, exposure.
Good. Meryl, any last words, or move to the next question?
Yeah, I also agree. My parents would like take me to events with them, and they would let me kind of look around at the equipment. They would take me to museums, like a living computer museum, where they would show me the different things there, even though I didn't really fully understand it. Joining different clubs, when I was able to choose from different classes when I got to high school, I just tried as many different CTE classes, and then I found one that I thought that was really interesting to me, and then joining the robotics team just further solidified that interest. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, and we have time for one more. Julie, if there's anything else that you're seeing floating around in there that you think is a good question.
I'm going to read you two questions that are very different, Margot. You take your pick. One says, did anyone ever underestimate you because you're a woman? The other question asks about how to build up your resume for STEM specifically.
I just got a screen freeze for a second. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I heard the first question, Julie. Did anybody underestimate you because you're a woman? But I didn't hear the second one, if you wouldn't mind repeating it again.
The second one asks about how to build up your resume for STEM specifically.
Your resume, like for college, for professional, for anything? All right. Why don't we take the second one? Because I think we've had a lot of undercurrents of, did anybody ever underestimate you and what did you do to kind of overcome this? So let's try the second one. How did you build up your resume? And I think we've got perspectives, can answer this from a couple of perspectives. I mean, a lot of the high school girls will be, how did you build it up for applying to college? And then for those in college, and Jasmine is graduated, how did you build it up in addition to just your classes to become attractive to potential employers? So why don't we, well, let's start with Meryl, since she's going directly from 10th grade to college. So you must have done a few things that were meaningful to some of the college admissions folks to build up your resume. So what kinds of things are meaningful for you that you think you've done?
Yeah, it was definitely trying out those different clubs and those classes, as well as getting involved with organizations. So I was involved with Reinvented magazine for a while. It's the first print magazine bind for women and girls in STEM. Also involving myself in STEM for Her because I love advocating for women and girls in STEM. I founded a Bainbridge Island Girl Up, which is a chapter of Girl Up organization that is run by the United Nations, that was founded in 2010, and it works towards gender equality. And I also did multiple initiatives and went on trips for grants for STEM for social good, which is part of Girl Up. And so involving myself in those kind of organizations and those clubs I think are really what made me stand out as a girl in STEM. And yeah, I think that's probably the biggest part of it.
Okay, fantastic. All right, keeping on the high school to college theme, Kirti, I'll go to you next because I know that you've done quite a bit just being in high school and you're only just about to go to college now. So what are some of the things that you did to beef up your resume or attractiveness to colleges?
Yeah, I could just like echo what Meryl said in terms of joining as many organizations or clubs, things like that. And I would also say like take initiative. So something that I did to take initiative was starting SheSoft, which is the nonprofit that I founded dedicated to bridging the gender gap. And I would just say, yeah, like take initiative, maybe start like, the way I started SheSoft was I started doing like camps and classes for girls to get them interested in robotics and technology. So you could start with something like that, where maybe you just help people out in your neighborhood or your community and things like that, and take initiative to just start something and then grow from there. And then yeah, I also just joined whatever I thought was interesting. So I think like I went to a high school with a lot of different opportunities, and in my freshman year I joined clubs, a bunch of clubs that I thought were interesting, and I sort of like narrowed down as I like went through my entire high school career. So I think, yeah, just like initially join as many things as you can or are interested in. And then you can just keep narrowing down from there based on how your interests change or how much you're interested in and things like that.
Okay, good advice. All right, how about Jasmine? What about, you've got high school and college and now being in the first job. So what did you do throughout the entire time to position you for where you are right now?
Yeah, so in high school, definitely taking initiative, joining clubs that are interesting to you. I won a grant through the National College of Women Information Technology, NCWIT, to start my own coding camp for girls in a Title I school in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And that was, hopefully as meaningful for those girls as it was for me. But then in college, there are a lot of things that you can put on your resume. You can put on projects that you worked on in class that you found really interesting and enjoyed working on. And you can, if you have a lot of free time, you can, make your own project with friends. I really encourage you when you're in college to reach out to professors that you have and just ask them, just put yourself out there and ask them, can I work in your lab? Can I work on this project that you've been working on? Like the worst they can say is no, And also I really enjoyed giving back to the community when I was in college. And I joined a club called FEMS that went to local Durham public schools and taught math and science classes once a week. So, it's a mixture of, everything you do, I hope it's something that you're passionate about, but it's a mixture of doing like individual projects, team projects, and doing stuff in the community, I think can be really fulfilling and meaningful.
Yeah, it's good to have that roundedness. I remember when I was an undergrad in college, I volunteered with some of the local elementary schools to do tutoring with one student on it was both math and English just once a week, and it was rewarding to me. It's I think to her as well. All right. Any last thoughts, Annika, or are we ready to wrap up?
I think that's it. I think they covered everything.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we are just about at the end. Thank you to all the panelists. I think you shared some incredible perspectives to the audience. I hope this was interesting and educational for you. We look forward to welcoming you to our next summer sessions, one on choosing a college for STEM and working in the real world. So you will see some announcements coming out for that soon. And lastly, we will be sending out an evaluation form not long after the session, and we would really appreciate it if you could fill it out because it gives us a basis of, this is our first one. So we want to learn what did you find meaningful? What would you like to see more of? What anything you felt like you were missing? Because that really helps us as well. And thanks to everybody who helped organize this from our side on STEM for Her, the logistics, the questions. It took an army to pull it all together, but I'm very happy we finally made it happen. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.